Hello, I am David DeBusk, and again today I'm coming to you from Texas. And I want to start off today by talking about what happened on October the 7th of this year. The world witnessed a shocking display of evil as the terrorist organization of Hamas launched a planned attack in the southern part of Israel that resulted in the deaths of approximately 1,400 men, women, and children, mostly civilians. The initial news reports revealed the unconscionable, Nazi-like hatred that Hamas has for the Jewish people. Yet within hours, pro-Palestinian organizations were claiming that this attack was a result of age-old territorial disputes resulting from Israeli occupation. While at the same time, there were pro-Palestinian supporters that were marching in protest to Israel's declared war in Gaza and crying out for the death of every Jew on earth. Now, it doesn't take a genius to realize that this conflict is not just about land and borders. It goes much deeper than that. At this very moment, our air and our naval forces are being stationed throughout the Mediterranean. Equipment, weapons, and supplies are being shipped to Israel to support their effort to eliminate Hamas. In response, Turkey, the Iranian regime, along with organizations such as Hezbollah, that's located to the north of Israel in Syria and in Lebanon, have warned that military actions in Gaza might well lead to war. All of this has cast the world spotlight on Israel. And get this, Israel in landmass is smaller than New Jersey. To be precise, Israel is only 270 miles long and 85 miles wide at the longest and widest points. She sits in the very center of the world, and she is the fuse, if lit, will set off the prophetic explosion of World War III. With the unfolding of these events, I feel it is important that people take a very close look at who is Israel, especially considering all the pro-Israel organizations and ministries that have made her the centerpiece of their existence. The identity of Israel may seem readily apparent on the surface, but the reality may come as a big surprise to you. On November the 29th of 1947, the United Nations met in Flushing Meadows, New York. Member countries voted on Resolution 181 to adopt the partition plan of Palestine. The actual vote lasted only 4 minutes and 4 seconds. The vote passed 33 for, 13 against, with 10 abstentions. This vote paved the way for what we now know as the nation-state of Israel. Make note of this date, for I believe it set in motion end-time events that will be fulfilled in this generation.
We will start it now.
Afghanistan? No. Argentina? Argentina? Abstention. Australia? Yes. Belgium? Yes. Bolivia? Yes. Brazil? Yes. Belarusia? Yes. Canada? Yes. Chile? Abstention. China? Abstention. Colombia? Abstention. Costa Rica? Yes. Cuba? No. Czechoslovakia? Yes. Denmark? Yes. Dominican Republic? Yes. Ecuador? Yes. Egypt? No. El Salvador? Abstention. Ethiopia? Abstain. France? Yes. Greece? No. Guatemala? Yes. Haiti? Yes. Honduras? Abstain. Iceland? Yes. India? No. Iran? No. Iraq? No. Lebanon? No. Liberia? Yes. Luxembourg? Yes. Mexico? Abstain. Netherlands? Yes. New Zealand? Yes. Nicaragua? Yes. Norway? Yes. Pakistan? No. Panama? Yes. Paraguay? Yes. Peru? Yes. Philippines? Yes. Poland? Yes. Saudi Arabia? No. Siam? Absent. Sweden? Yes. Syria? No. Turkey? No. Ukraine? Yes. South Africa? Yes. Soviet Union? Yes. The United Kingdom? Abstain. The United States? Yes. Uruguay? Yes. Venezuela? Yes. Yemen? No. Yugoslavia? Abstain. 4, 6, 7, 10.
The resolution of the DUC Committee for Palestine was adopted by 33 votes, 13 against, 10 abstentions.
At the forefront of the effort to form an independent Jewish state were secular Jews known as Zionists. According to the Anti-Defamation League, Zionism is the movement for the self-determination and statehood for the Jewish people in their ancestral homeland, the land of Israel. According to Encyclopedia Britannica, Zionism is the Jewish national movement that has had as its goal the creation and the support of a Jewish national state in Palestine, the ancient homeland of the Jews. In Hebrew, Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel. It was David Ben-Gurion that is credited as the primary national founder of the State of Israel, as well as the state's first prime minister. On the 14th day of May 1948, he formally proclaimed the establishment of Israel, and he was the first to sign the Israeli Declaration of Independence, which he had helped to write. Immediately following the end of the British mandate for Palestine at midnight on the 14th day of 1948, Egypt, Transjordan, Syria, and expeditionary forces from Iraq entered Palestine. The invading forces took control of the Arab areas and immediately attacked Israeli forces. As a result of the war, the State of Israel ended up controlling the area that the UN had proposed for the Jewish state, as well as almost 60% of the area proposed for the Arab state. The conflict triggered significant demographic change throughout the Middle East. Around 700,000 Palestinian Arabs fled or were expelled from their homes in the area that became Israel, and they became Palestinian refugees. Since then, the world has witnessed various degrees of conflict, war, and opposition. What I'm about to share with you may come as a big surprise. One of the greatest opponents to the formation of the Jewish state of Israel was and is religious Jews, often referred to as the ultra-Orthodox. At the forefront of this opposition was a rabbi and a scholar by the name of Yoel Teitelbaum. He saw the Zionist movement as secular and unbiblical. Listen carefully as Rabbi Yaakov Shapiro explains why the ultra-Orthodox opposed the formation and the existence of the Jewish state of Israel.
We are the Jewish people, the Jewish nation. Our homeland is our Torah, our Holy Bible. The State of Israel has declared their intention to take the Torah scholars, our most valuable national treasure, to take them out of the study halls, to change their mindset from 2,000-year-old traditional Jewish religious mindset to the nationalist, Zionist mindset. I want to read you, in short, a paragraph from one of the founding fathers of Zionism, Vladimir Jabotinsky. He's describing what the goal of Zionism is. Our starting point is to take a typical Yid of today and to imagine his diametrical opposite. The Zionists wanted to change the definition of Jewishness from a religion to land, language, and culture. They needed a land, that's Israel. They needed a language, so they created a new language. Ivrit, Hebrew is called. Traditionally, the Jewish people are a religion. To the Zionists, as Ben-Gurion believed, religion is the national tragedy of the Jewish people. Until now, they didn't have much of an opportunity, or they didn't believe they had much of a necessity to openly assault our religion. To us, to the world, they presented us as museum pieces, like dinosaur bones. Suddenly, we become real and a threat to them because they see that we're not giving up our religion. The same energy, the same power, the same commitment and resolve that kept us alive for 2,000 years is now being leveraged against them. And the same reason the Persians and the Greeks and the Romans could not assimilate us and make us into them, the Zionists now see they can't make us into them either. So now they are attempting a more direct assault by trying to take our students out of the yeshiva, where they learn the Jewish values and the Jewish ideals, and put them into the Israeli army. Israeli army is not just a organization of self-defense. It's not just a military. It's a melting pot. It's a agent of social change. The values that are taught in the Israeli army are diametrically opposed to the values of Judaism. It's an indoctrination camp. It's not just the military. They teach them about Jewish heroes. Their Jewish heroes were our Jewish villains. Bar Kokhba, one of the person who led a rebellion against the Romans, we call him Bar Koziva, the big fraud. To them, he's a national hero. Never mind, Bar Kokhba lost. It was a bloody disaster. Besides the Holocaust, it was the largest bloodbath. We will not allow our children to go like sheep to the slaughter from the yeshiva to their indoctrination camp. We're not going to let them brainwash us and change the education of our children. Even if they make the army religious and they even require the Jews to put on tefillin in the morning and to wear yarmulkes, for example, it wouldn't make any difference whatsoever. The values that they teach in the army, the values that, the idea that Israel is the protection for the Jewish people, the idea that the Jewish people needed a state, a land, language, and culture in order to survive, in order to flourish. The idea, the very basis of Zionism that they teach, the very basis of the purpose of the army, is diametrically opposed to Judaism. If not for the indoctrination attempt, they would give us a divinity exemption like they've been doing until now. And it's not the generals that are coming to say, okay, we have to draft more soldiers. It's the politicians. They don't need us and they don't want us from a military perspective. They only want us from a culture war perspective. The Jewish nation was intact, and yes, we were battered, and yes, we were bruised during the 2,000 years that we existed in exile. But on one hand, everybody is wondering, how in the world did the Jews survive? There's no other nation that could survive in exile 2,000 years. Remember, we didn't have an army. We didn't have a state. And we survived, and our Talmud tells us the secret. It's because of our Torah, because of our religion, and it tells us that one of the reasons we survive is because we don't have a state. Imagine a guy steals your identity, ties you up, beats you up, puts you in the closet, and calls himself whatever your name is. And he uses your credit card, he racks up bills, and then he comes to you out of the closet and says, at least you got to help me pay. We have bills. You can't do that. Leave us alone. Leave us to what we've been doing for 2,000 years before they came to try to assimilate us into them, before they tried to change us. Just leave us alone. And if they don't want to leave us alone, we'll make sure that they leave us alone. We're not going to allow them to destroy our community and our culture and our religion. The Israeli government has an army. They want to draft us into their army. The Jewish people have an army also. It's the army of our scholars, the army of our rabbis, that have kept us alive throughout the years. We had our army mobilized in Manhattan this past Sunday. Those rabbis that spoke, those are our generals. We wanted our brothers in Israel, the boys, to see why the Jewish people were able to survive for 2,000 years. Number two is to show the Israeli government that all segments of Jewry are behind our Torah scholars, and we're all against the draft.
Locket auf a Heini ben Israel in our tiny Akdeutsche, der Geseires Schmad, fin Gies ben Yeshivas, who's der einzigste Ziel is, le Hashkicham Toiru Seichu, ila Viro Malchikaire Zunechu. Wegen dem rief mir ins Haus, Handrisch heute Stammes, Tuf schien an Himmel. Shma Yisrael, Atem Kirayvi, Mayoim Lamel Chumu Aloi Weichem. In Sommer Hand ungoib Mamel Chume Kirweide, Leman Kvoida Shem betoirusoi I b'shaim Hashem Nasser v'natzliach.
The message was, this common cause is so important. We are the rabbis themselves, hands-on. We're going to get together and we're going to join our voices in a chorus and tell the Israeli government, we have an army too.
Ich habe gehört von einem Soldaten, was inne wenig, was sagt, gesagt war mit Endigung, mit Gius Bnei HaYeshivas, wird man anfangen mit Gius Bonis. Also haben sie gesagt, dass sie Kuloi noch das Sinne verteut, auf Oikel sein, der Teure und Oikel sein das.
We hope the Israeli government will get the message that they're up against the same force that has kept the Jewish people alive for 2,000 years. We're here to tell them that they can declare war from today till tomorrow. We're not waving the white flag. We're about to begin a historic event. This stadium that you see is not really a stadium. Today, the stadium is a classroom. This is going to be an educational lesson, lectures given by experts in Judaism about Judaism, in particular, the incompatibility between Judaism and Zionism. Many Jews believe, wrongly, that Zionism is either part of Judaism or is compatible with Judaism or is even the main part of Judaism. All of those are actually false. Zionism was created to negate Judaism. Zionism was created to replace Judaism. The differences between Zionism and Judaism are vast. They're vast and profound. The propaganda that the Zionists have churned out for the past 100 years have confused and conflated Zionism and Judaism such that when the average person walks down the street, he thinks that the state of Israel is the Jewish state, he thinks that Zionism is Judaism, and he doesn't know the difference. This group of Jews here are students of the late Satmar Rabbi Reb Yoel Teitelbaum, who was the greatest disseminator of the clarity regarding the difference between Judaism and Zionism. He understood it, he wrote a very big book about it, and he, more than anybody else, was able to communicate that to his students. It is important to review his teachings so that we can understand what our religion is about. According to Zionism, Jewish identity is political, it's national. According to Judaism, Jewish identity is completely religious. A Jew, by definition, is somebody who accepted the Jewish religion or who is defined as a Jew by the Jewish religion. According to Zionism, Jewish identity is political, and it's defined the same way we define the identity of any nationals, like a Frenchman or a Canadian. According to Judaism, Jewish identity is centered only around God and God's teachings, nothing else. According to Zionism, Jewish identity is centered around a nation state, which they randomly decided is the nation state that was created in 1948 that they call Israel. According to Judaism, a Jew is supposed to have certain character traits. He's supposed to eschew violence. He's supposed to oppose violence. He's supposed to be disgusted by violence. Even in the olden days when Jews had to defend themselves, that was considered nothing to glorify. Jews don't have military heroes. We have religious heroes. Our heroes are the righteous. Our heroes are the scholars. The heroes of the Zionists are the war heroes. The Jews have no national sites where wars took place, such as the Alamo in America. Jews are not militant. Jews are religious. Jews are, the way the Bible describes us, a nation of priests and a holy people. If people want to retain their Jewish identity, if they want to resist the propaganda that is churned out by Zionists and Zionism every day, then it is vital that they take proactive steps to defend themselves against it. Look, the Zionist propaganda is everywhere. We live in a world where every day this message that has been deliberately promulgated by the Zionists is fed to us. Israel, Jewish state, Israel, Jews, Israel, the Jewish people, Israel protects the Jews. It's all bogus.
ultra-Orthodox believe that King Solomon in his writings of Shir HaSharim, Song of Songs, also known as the Song of Solomon, that he prophetically gave the Jewish people instructions in the form of 3 oaths. Accordingly, number 1, they're not to return in mass to the Holy Land after being exiled among the nations. Number 2, they're not to rebel against any nation in which they reside, but rather they are to be loyal citizens praying for the well-being of that nation. And number 3, that they are not to attempt to make any attempt to end their exile. It was because of their sins that they've been spread out among the nations. They believe that they are to wait patiently for the day that the Messiah will lead them back into the land of promise. It states very clearly in Isaiah chapter 11, verse 11, that in that day, the Lord's day, the day of Yahweh, that my Lord will apply his hand again to redeeming the other part of his people from Assyria, as also from Egypt, Pathros, Nubia, Elam, Shinar, Hamath, and the coastlands. He will hold up a signal to the nations, and he will assemble the banished of Israel and gather the dispersed of Judah from the 4 corners of the earth. It says he will assemble the banished. He will gather the dispersed. It also states in Hosea chapter 11, verses 10 and 11, they will follow Yahweh. He will roar like a lion. When he roars, his children will come trembling from the west. They will come from Egypt trembling like sparrows, from Assyria fluttering like doves. I will settle them in their homes, declares Yahweh. Now this brings us to a very important question. Who is Israel? The Apostle Paul wrote in the book of Romans, chapter 9, verse 6, and stated that it is not as though the word of God had failed. For not all those who are descended from Israel are truly Israel. Folks, according to Scripture, Israel is the elect, descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And according to Isaiah 56:6, it includes the foreigners who are the Gentiles who commit themselves to Yahweh to serve him, to love the name and the authority of Yahweh, and become his slaves, and all who keep the Sabbath without desecrating it, and who hold firmly to his covenant. People from around the world need to understand that Israel is not defined as a worldly kingdom comprised of land and borders. In ancient times, she existed even when she was held in bondage by Egypt. She was a nation wandering in the wilderness for 40 years. She was a nation in exile in Babylon, Persia, and throughout the world. And even now, Israel is the righteous nation, the set-apart people of God, dwelling within the nations. We read in the book of Joel, chapter 3, the foreboding words of Yahweh. Then I will gather all the nations, and I will bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat. I will enter into judgment against them there. Concerning my people Israel, who are my inheritance, whom they scattered among the nations. They partitioned my land. Perhaps I'm wrong, but I've come to believe that on November the 29th of 1947, when the United Nations voted to approve Resolution 181, they fulfilled the prophetic words spoken by Yahweh and written down by the prophet Joel. They partitioned my land. What the world is now witnessing are nations gathering in the Middle East, and soon they will gather in the valley of Jehoshaphat, the valley of divine judgment. In Paul's second letter to the Corinthians, he wrote, Therefore come forth from out of the middle of them, of unbelievers, out of the world, and be set apart, says Adonai. And do not touch the unclean thing, and I will receive you, and I will be to you for a father, and you you will be to me for sons and daughters, says Adonai Sabaoth, the Lord God Almighty. Likewise, we read in Revelation chapter 18 where the Apostle John wrote and stated, "And I heard another voice out of the heaven, saying, Come forth out of her, my people, so that you may not share with her sins, and so that you may not receive of her plagues, because her sins are piled up to the heaven, and God remembered her unrighteousness." And lastly, in the book of Romans chapter 9, the Apostle Paul writes, and Yeshayahu, Isaiah, also shouts concerning Yisrael, "Even if the number of the sons of Yisrael may be as the sand of the sea, only the remnant will be saved." Let me repeat that. Only the remnant will be saved.